I'm Katrina Ness, joined by Jean Ings, and we are here in Dallas, Texas at the Snell Motor Company. Jean, it has been an incredible day so far, and we have a really powerful women's panel right here sitting with us. So I'm hoping that, starting down by Jean, if you guys would like to introduce yourselves and tell us who you are and what you do.
Hi, I'm Anna Trevino, also go by Gallegos. I'm a service advisor here, and I've been here for 10 years.
I'm Kaylee Felio. I'm the Sales and Marketing Director for PartsEdge.
I'm Rebecca DeLeon. I oversee the talent acquisition for Snell Motor Companies.
I'm Maureen Martin. I'm the Vice President of Strategic Alliances for Dynatron Software.
My name is Jackie Rosales. I am the internal advisor over at Snell Collision Center.
I'm Marie Whitmore. I've been in the business 26 years. I'm a service advisor here at Snell JLR Dallas.
Amazing. Now, ladies, we all know that you all play such an important role in the automotive industry. And I'm interested to hear a little bit about your stories about, have you ever been underestimated in your role? And if you could tell us a little bit about how it played out. Maureen, I'm going to jump to you first.
Okay. Well, I had the privilege to start in the automotive industry 38 years ago with Ford Motor Company, my first 11 years. So at the time, there really weren't any women that were working in the automotive space, particularly at one of the OEMs. And so I had the privilege to be, kind of leading edge. Probably most unique opportunity during that time was I was responsible for the Hawaiian Islands. And so I had parts, service, I had sales, I worked with 3 regional offices. And so I've always felt it's very important, not necessarily underestimate, but it was really about understanding that we bring a different perspective. We're just as passionate about the industry. And how do we get more women to come into it? I've also had the opportunity to really do some women organizations about recruiting and retention in the automotive industry. And so I feel it's really important that we continue to give back and we bring more women into it because a diverse thought leadership really makes a big difference.
Absolutely. Kaylee, what about yourself? In your space in the automotive industry and your career path and growth, have you ever felt underestimated or anything like that? And how did it play out?
I've been in the industry about 12 years and it's shifted a lot. And I remember, fortunately, I have great founders and bosses that I work for that's always let me test things out and just explore and really, make a brand for our company. But I would come across some parts managers that would not take me seriously. So and I would go back and just, dig deeper and really try to understand because I haven't been in that role and really put myself in their shoes so that I can better support them and figure out ways to be there for them. So that's really, and it's shifted, that was, when I first started. And I think I've changed a lot and grown a lot too. And it boiled down to confidence and really going, through those practices to practice confidence. I don't think it's not totally a natural thing. It's something you have to be conscious of and, own it. So.
Rebecca, what about yourself? Being here at Snell, we've heard that they have an amazing culture, so that might not be the case at all for here. But even in your past, have you had any experiences in this male-dominated industry where you felt underrepresented or underappreciated?
Yeah, absolutely. Similar to Kaylee, I think I've had the luxury of having some great leadership under my belt. And so I do have that privilege of having men in the industry that do advocate for me and what I stand for. So 16 years in, and my first venture into really going into the dealership world was in the San Antonio market. And so I had a fixed ops director who would just not give me the time of day. And I told my boss, I was like, Steve, I'm not going back to that dealership. And so he'd never let me kind of let go of that account. And so really, that's where I defined my grit. I had to be consistent. And I think my success is a lot to do with the men that supported us as well.
Absolutely. Do you feel the culture that has been built here at Snell has played a different role in shaping a lot of these women on the panel that are sitting with us here today?
I think so. So my biggest, tool is to be able to talk to our leadership team and go, hey, these women bring a different perspective. They bring some empathy to the industry that we so rarely get. And so they have really taken on the listening ears and being able to advocate for the ladies that we do have on the team. Yeah.
Well, speaking of leadership, that actually rolls really well into our next question. How do we move from just representation to actual influence in leadership roles? I know we talked a little bit about grit. We talked a little bit about building confidence. What does that look like for you in your roles? Anna, do we want to start with you?
Sure. I want to say, you're saying grit. I agree with that. Also, I want to say nurturing too. I think that brings a different perspective. I know as a mom too, and being in this industry, I do understand like empathy and sympathy with people in the situations. You just never know what kind of relationship or where they're at this moment. So it's just about kind of talking to them, understanding where they're at, and just nurturing that relationship so that you can just identify their needs and expectations.
Anna had talked a little bit about, I had seen her train a lot of the newer advisors coming in the door. And so I go, why? Why do you do that? Or how do you get them to really buy into your process, right? Because she is so soft-spoken. And as an advisor, I'm like, oh my goodness, how do you combat that? And so her why is, I want to know what their why is too. And so then I shift my training to adapt to what their interests are. And so correlate it to that. And I think she has a really good niche for that. So good for you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Marie, what about yourself? How do you turn, just being women representation into actually, influence and leadership?
An old service director said a phrase, you can't demand respect, you have to command it with your actions, with your words. So I try to do as I say. I try to set the standard and lead. And obviously it's also taking in what everyone is saying and not saying no or not, but actually listening and trying to adapt, trying to make things work. So I try to lead by example, and I try to listen to what people are telling me and not turn a blind ear to it or a deaf ear to it, and actually learn from it and try to grow from that.
Absolutely. Jackie, what about yourself? How do you turn just female representation into actual leadership and empower within yourself?
I think that representation is the first step. It just means that the door is open.
Yeah.
But when you give a woman the resources, the authority, and the trust, that's when we switch from not just representing, but also making decisions that shape the business. And I think that, when you're in that, once you're in that position, then, the business or the things that happen around you, just, you tend to see the way that people react to you. And I think at that point you've gone from representation, but now moving into influence.
Absolutely.
I totally agree. Wow. Now, ladies, we're going to do this next question in a bit of a speed round. We talked about how automotive is often a male-dominated space. But for yourselves, how do you navigate that space in retail automotive without losing yourself? Rebecca, do you want to start us off with that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I have learned to be soft when I need to be soft, and I have learned to be stern when I need to be stern. I definitely make my voice heard, and in the most respectful manner. Some would call us abrasive or very forward thinking, right? But when they would categorize, the gentleman in the industry as, hey, a leader, and so I have tried to define that line and hold strong and steady to what I believe without being emotional. And so emotional versus passionate is something that I try to tread lightly, right? Because I can become very passionate, which can come off as emotional. So
Anna, what about yourself? You were talking about the nurturing aspect of you being a mother. How do you navigate the retail automotive world without losing yourself? Maybe from that aspect.
I would probably say I agree with you about being emotional versus passionate. I want to say, like, sometimes whenever you have that strong sentiment towards someone or you want to share an idea, I do feel like, at least in this industry at Snell Motor Company, I do feel like everything is very open discussion, that we're able to talk about it, that we're able to move forward, and they're open to our ideas. I feel like it has shaped, like being a mom and then also being a service advisor and being a leader has shaped me to allow me, I guess, them to embrace any decisions or any, thoughts that I have. So without resistance.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Kaylee, do you have anything to add about navigating the automotive space without losing yourself?
Oh, yeah, that's such a great question, and I can completely relate to becoming a mom and managing your career and not, yeah, not losing. I think that's the whole thing, is having a career and being a mom. That's how you don't lose yourself. And you have that balance. And some days you feel like you fail completely at being a mom, and some days you fail completely at being in your role. So it's like, I don't even think it's called balance. It's like harmony. They say, like, it's okay. Some days you that are like that. But that's how I think you can maintain and not lose yourself, and be who you are, and be a mom and have a career. So I feel like I'm rambling. But
Does anyone have any last final thoughts to add on the topic of?
The only thing I would add is that, I have the privilege, I have triplets that just graduated from college, and as an executive in the automotive industry, I can tell you that the men appreciate just as much as the women what it's like to be a parent in today's world. And when we approach it from that perspective, I know that we can bring so many more talented people into our industry. A lot of people just don't look at automotive the way that we do. And I had an executive at Ford, Jim O'Connor, who always taught me, if you really want to understand the automotive industry, go to a dealership, have them take you under their wing. They'll teach you the business, because in some form or fashion, all of us support the retail network. We do it from software company, from the fixed operation side. But when we look at it, look at your male counterparts as being, it's about our skills and our gifts, and we all bring something unique to the table.
Absolutely. Well, thank you all for joining us today on this very powerful women's panel. It's great to see so many inspiring leaders sitting next to us in this industry. And then for those of you continuing to stay tuned online, we have a lot more to come and so many more panels to push out. So thank you for joining us.